Welcome to another episode of Monday at Tsene with Pretoria Psychologists. I'm Stephanie Swarts and I will be presenting on a relationship segment called You versus You, which constitutes the relationship that one has with oneself. So the relationship that one has with oneself encapsulates and involves kind of topics that people have previously discussed. But what I'm going to try and do in this segment is I'm just going to add some sauce nyana. Okay. So the relationship with oneself involves, as I said, cultivating a healthy self-esteem by moving away from a low self-esteem. So let's go into, I'll give you a little bit of contextual background to the self. So with the self, there are two perspectives predominant to the self. So there is the African perspective and the Western perspective. So from an African perspective, the self may be relationally understood. For example, when we say umuntu gabuntu gabantu, it means I am who I am through other people. For example, if I also say it took a village to raise a child, or I was raised by a village. So with a Western perspective, the concept of the self is understood more individualistically and more subjectively. However, the self also has reciprocal causality, meaning that my behavior has an impact on somebody else and somebody else's behavior has an impact on me. For example, if I say that I define my happiness, or inversely, my happiness is defined by the number of likes that I get on a post. So just moving into the relationship with the self, it's an extremely important aspect, which is probably why I'm combining those two aspects. So it is very important as it overlaps into the way that we treat other people, our existence, our being, and our ability to be resilient, especially when striving towards a goal. So the relationship with the self, again, is both influenced by extraneous variables, meaning one's environment, and the self, one's internal self. So meaning that we often experience things that we tend to internalize and define ourselves by. Inversely, what also happens is we could define ourselves differently to the things that we internalize. Let's say, for example, with labels. If I was bullied growing up, being called, oh, hey Macy, you fat, whatever, you get me? I might have internalized that, and then I might have attached that label to myself and how I view myself. Inversely, I could also just decide that, hey, yo, you know what? Actually, girl is boss, I'm not fat. According to recent research, however, a lot of people, many individuals, have difficulty with displaying certain aspects when it comes to the relationship with themselves. Meaning, displaying the following areas or the following characteristics, such as self-compassion, validating oneself, or self-validation, or showing unconditional positive regard towards oneself. Again, a self-empowerment. Also inversely, criticism, self-criticism, and self-doubt. Also, developing a strong sense of self is something that people have experienced difficulty with, as well as, again, sense of strong self-esteem. So the effects of these difficulties often attribute to two areas. So firstly, it may inhibit one's sense of growth or the ability to self-soothe. And then secondly, it may create a dependency on others. as we were just looking at with validation, seeking validation and affirmation from others. How do we avoid this? So the easiest way to avoid this is by enforcing or partaking in what we would call self-fullness. So what self-fullness means is developing towards a sense of self-awareness and a sense of self that strives towards optimal development. That definition was taken from a state of development or developmental awakening, an article. Just to elaborate on self-fullness, I'm going to explain it in a day-to-day example. So you know, when you get into an airplane and the airplane is about to embark, the air hostesses will come and tell you the emergency prompts if anything happens during your flight. So they will firstly give you the exit, and then they will tell you that a mask, an oxygen mask, is about to drop. What do they tell you afterwards? They tell you you have to put the mask on yourself first before you put it on somebody else. This means that we have to find ways of re-energizing ourselves before we can pour energy into other people, because it's going to increase the extent to which and our capacity to help others. And as my queen RuPaul would say, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen? Amen. This is Stephanie Swarts and I'm out. Yo.